Profiles are used to create a slimmed down version of the main database. This is going to allow you for more specific settings to be applied on a per project basis, as well as reduced database size. With this smaller database size, it can provide quicker configuration reload times in Revit. Next. All right. When you're in a profile, any database changes made are going to be saved within this profile only. If you notice, I have database capitalized because it's not every setting. It's going to be the database settings. This means that if you change the installation specs, pressure class, these changes are now going to be saved to this slimmed down database version created by the profile. All right. This is going to allow you to make changes on a per job basis. So for example, you can keep the same name for your chilled water installation spec across many profiles, but yet have different thickness values applied. So when you have multiple trades and they're using a single database, one of the things that comes up a lot, another topic that is a debated topic is whether you should have a single database for all of the trades or everything in it, or if you should have separate ones. So in this case, if you're using a single database, you've got multiple trades, a good thing that profiles do for you is it allows you to go through and create specific profiles per trade. So you could have a duct profile that's, let's say, for project A, while creating a plumbing profile for project A and a mechanical piping profile for project A. Each profile can be stylized for their respective trade. That allows, the ductwork to only show ductwork services, the ones that are chosen specifically for this project, and the same thing for plumbing and piping services. That way, when you go to your list, you don't have all of the duct services showing. If you're just doing plumbing, if you're doing plumbing, you don't. If you're doing piping, you're not going to see the plumbing or duct services. Go ahead. Now, to start off the actual discussion that we're going to have this is my belief. My belief is that by implementing the use of profiles within your fabrication procedures, you're going to gain more organization as well as speed increases. It's going to allow multiple trades to use the same database with less junk from other trades showing up, and it provides an easy way to archive and remove projects, which here projects and profile are going to go hand in hand. It's the same thing. When a job is done, I believe it's an overall cleaner way to organize the myriad of projects that a contractor can see in a year. So many that come through here. By using profiles, if you look at your service list, you're going to see a small list. If you're working in global, haven't used profiles or anything, you're going to have a huge long list because you have to create custom services per project. Having profiles is an easy way by just going in and exporting a profile and then deleting it out to clean it out rather than having to go through and clean out services, so on and so forth. So this on this slide right here is my belief on it. Now, I know there's lots of different views on it, and that's what this is going to be. It's going to be a question and answer. It's going to be yeah, that sounds right to me. No, I think you're way off, and you need to get your crap together. So go ahead. I believe that was the last one in mine, correct? Yep. Who's currently using profiles? What advantages or disadvantages do you see? This is the talk that we're going to have this morning. So what I would like to have happen now is everyone feel free, unmute, and let's start discussing the topic. If you have questions on it, if somebody, we find that profiles don't work for us as a company because of blah, 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 then we'll discuss it. So let's go, people. And if it's quiet, I'm not doing another office hours or webinar ever again. I
Well,
know
they
most of you
got some.
guys on here.
He put some stakes there, you know, but everyone is getting a free Starbucks gift card, and I will give an extra one for the person who talks the most. So boom, throw that out
Hey,
there.
Sean?
A little bit of bribery, but that's okay.
Yes, Earl.
Advantages on using profiles versus separate databases.
Versus separate databases.
Yes.
I'm a believer of having one single database, period, for all of the trades. I think that it's easier to maintain and keep accidents from happening. And that being said, using profiles, you're going to be able to do that easily. If you have multiple databases, yes, you can eliminate some of your profiles, but then you're going to go ahead and have issues that may arise regarding having the same information in there. You also may want to share reports. It's easier to do it when they're all together. I'm just a big believer of a single database.
No, I agree with you. I'm just trying to get the information to convince my boss.
Understood. And like I said, I think it's the best way to keep from having problems or differences between the databases, especially another big topic that I'll probably have a office hours on later is going to be who has access to the database or not. If you've got multiple databases, you've got multiple people getting into multiple databases, which is going to be multiple changes. And I just really believe it's easier to have one database, and we're not going to talk about it here, and this is probably going to be a hot topic, but I believe you should have one database admin and a backup in case it gets hit by a bus. But I will say that there are going to be times where it is justified to have more. In a perfect world, it would be one. So my justification is you're going to have less of a chance of information mix-up and problems arising between project databases, and also it's just going to be one location. If you want to use the often used term, a single source of truth.
Good enough. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
For
David?
our company, we have for our company we have the three trades: piping, plumbing, sheet metal, and we do have profiles on a combined database for the hydronic side, and we have a completely separate database for sheet metal. So we kind of do both. One, the sheet metal it's on its own, and the hydronics for piping and plumbing, it's where we utilize the profiles per project. So it works out best that way. The sheet metal content doesn't really go. Our reports are a little bit different. So it just works out for us to have both. So we do both, I guess.
Yeah, that's one of those situations. I see that arise for a couple different ways. One of the big ones is someone starts switching over to fabrication from a different product, one that is inferior. Just all joking. But what happens is you may have the plumbing side go ahead and go through and start making that change over while the duct side is not quite there yet. What that's going to cause is you're going to have a database that is being set up and maintained for plumbing and piping, and not paying attention to duct at all. So when the duct does decide to come over, they're going to end up more than likely starting their own database that's going to have the information that they need in there. That's one of the ways that I see that happen just organically. Another way that I see that happen is you just have, people that don't understand everything as far as plumbing, piping, sheet metal, and you don't have one person that feels really comfortable in trying to manage all of that. So that being said, they split them out to a plumbing and piping database and a sheet metal or duct database, and then put the appropriate person in charge of that. That works for some companies. like I said, when I said earlier, in a perfect world, the program was made to have one database and everything work off of it. But there are times when it happens. So if it's happened and it's working for your company, that's great.
Yeah, especially on the sheet metal side, we deal with, uh, a fitting. Let's say we need to make a fitting right at the shop. So the guy, a piping guy that it's just strictly piping or plumbing, he's really not going to know how to manage the ITMs from a sheet metal standpoint. So that has to do a lot with who manages what.
Right. Yep. Nope. Okay. I hope that answered your question. David Moorhead has been waiting patiently with his hand up, so please go ahead.
Morning. Quick question. Our firm uses one single master global database for all three trades. I'm wondering, do the profiles have a significant advantage in AutoCAD fabrication versus Revit? Our firm's 100% Revit, and sometimes the advantages are less clear to me. Is that in fact true?
I see benefits for both products, and they're not always the same between the two. On the AutoCAD side, I think it is much easier to work with using profiles due to the fact that in a Revit project, you normally have a Revit database that is loaded up into the actual file. And that's the one that stays in there. That's what everyone works on. Now, when you are working in AutoCAD, more than likely, each person is going to have a copy of the database on their machine or are linked to a copy of the database. What that allows is for you to do a refresh or make changes, and by using profiles, you're able to keep that separate out there. You're not going to have, conflicts that can arise, and you have a lot of the same benefits. Obviously, one of them is not going to be reload speed. That's more of a Revit thing, but the main thing is cleanliness and being able to clean that stuff out. You're going to be doing more database. When you're working in Revit, you really don't look at the database. Database is just kind of in the background and you're using it. When you're working in AutoCAD, a lot of times because the database is right there and you can make pretty much any modification you need, there's a tendency to get into it more. I just prefer profiles. I don't know if that answered your question. If it did not, please ask me to clarify.
No, that answered the question. We see that because in Revit you push the services into the file. The end user only has the options that are pushed in, so they can't go to different services that are not acceptable on the project specs, etc. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding it right from your point of view, Sean, and so that did answer my question. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. Who else wants to speak? Who wants to teach me something? I'm sure that some of you guys out there has ideas and thoughts about it that I haven't even come across yet.
The other thing to point out is on profiles specifically is that because at least our database is so vast on the hydronic side, for an end user on a new project to figure out what he's going to be utilizing for the project, it's easier to have somebody preload just the profile that he's going to utilize, and then it's just plug and play for him. Not really need to dig into the hundreds of services that we have. So that's another advantage for profiles as well.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I always like to think about, there's many different ways of managing the database as far as roles go. You may have someone who is mainly a detailer and a part-time database admin. That would be more common on a smaller company. More of what I have seen personally is large companies where it is a full-time job being a database admin. If the company's got 14 detailers and you've got quite a few projects coming through, you're going to go ahead and have a lot of work. You're going to be working 40, 50 hours to keep up with them. Now, one thing which definitely touches on what you just brought up is the fact that you do not know who is going to work on the project. As a database admin, you're asked to create the project. So I go in, I create a profile. I say, this is my chilled water service. This is my chilled water installation spec. Whoever does that job opens it up. And there has to be a trust between the database admin and the detailer in that case, because what the detailer is doing is putting his trust that the database admin has done the work to look at the specs for the project, checked with purchasing to make sure that, I'm not going to put Viega in there if they're going to go ahead and buy Nibco this time. Doing that work up front allows you to build a quote unquote dummy proof system where the profile, any detailer gets in there, opens it up. He knows he's drawing chilled water. He'll draw chilled water and he trusts it. That makes it easier. And I'd like to say that a trend that is happening, I'm old school. I've been doing this for almost 29 years now. And I actually started off working in the field, went through an apprenticeship as a sheet metal worker, became journeyman, started my own company at one point in time and found out that, plumbing and piping seemed to be what the majority of the work was. So I actually worked with some plumbing and piping companies. I worked with one exclusively for 3 years. And got a real good handling on plumbing and piping. So even though I'm a tenor, don't hold that against me, plumbing and piping guys, I've spent an extensive amount of time on that. That being said, having the knowledge of working in the field, working in a fab shop, being a detailer and, taking on pretty much every part of the trade, I can sit down when a new project starts and fairly quickly, look at the specs and make sure everything's good and go. Over the years, when I went to go hire a detailer, you normally got a person who's existing like in the field or has done some of the work already and they got hands-on experience. That seemed to be more of a trend, especially in union companies where that's a required, a requirement depending on which local you're in. Now, what I'm seeing more commonly now, especially with the use of Revit, is you're getting people straight out of a trade school that have learned Revit, and they come in, you do an interview for them. They seem extremely eager to, get into the field. And this is a way with profiles to allow them to jump in, running, because they know, okay, this, the specs and the drawings show chill water. I picked chilled water. And it's not like back in the day where you had a guy who knew what all of that meant. And as time goes on, these people who come in, they learn what it is. But it allows you to get some fairly inexperienced people and get them on the ground running fairly quickly.
100% agree with you.
All right. Who else? No one else? Okay. Like I was saying, the field has changed now, the field of construction technology. This is kind of branching off a little bit, so I'm going off on a rabbit hole a little bit here, but like we were just talking about profiles for younger, not trade experienced people coming in. What we're seeing more and more now is we're trying to change the actual detailing side, the BIM side, to look differently than it used to. You know, in the past, it was you're a construction worker that is learning Revit, or you're a construction worker that is drawing models. Well, with the people that are coming out now and how quickly technology seems to be growing, you're getting these young people who go in, they want a technology job. You have to go through and you need to change the way that you look at, you know, the field that a lot of us are in here. Detailing is no longer a construction position where you do drawing. It's more of a technology position where you do construction. By doing that, you're getting a lot of these people coming in so that they can tell their friends, or have on their resume that they did a tech job rather than a construction job. They're going to be in an office working and not getting dirty, whereas in the past, that's what they would kind of see happening when they're told that they're construction in the construction field but doing drawing. So we're having to change this around and kind of sweeten the way that it looks to get the younger crowd coming in. Now, as I'm talking, the younger crowd are probably most of you here. Like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. So I've been old school to new school. And so I hope you don't take offense when I say the younger crowd or whatever. I know you guys are professionals, but it seems to be that's a way that things are going. And again, profiles are perfect for that. It's basically taking a chunk of the database and setting it off to the side in its own folder area where you can go through and basically set up an entire project in there. There are many different uses for profiles. The most common one is to create a job. You get a project, and like I said, if you've got a full-time database admin, what they're going to do is go through the specs, do all of the footwork ahead of time and get things set up. Excuse me. But what can happen is profiles can be used to set up templates. You could have, especially on the sheet metal side, you could go through and take a profile and build it as your standard sheet metal template. In there, you're going to have your standard services for sheet metal. This is especially if you are in a company, a large company that is using multiple trades all within one database. You can create a profile that's going to be standard sheet metal. And in there, you're going to pick the services that you most likely are going to use. If your company is a TDC only, or TDC mostly, you can go through and create a TDC spec in there, and then have a SN drive / TDC or TDF, depending on you go inside or outside, spec set up, and have those ready so that when a new project starts. I've been working with someone recently, and the way that they have it set up is they will ask us, we manage their database for them, so they will post a request and say, we need a profile set up for this project here. It's basically going to be a mirror of the standard one. The only thing we don't have is, the fresh air intake. So what we do then is we just take that standard that we built and, create a profile off of it. A lot less to pick from. Any little particulars that may be in there, come over, and a lot less work. You could do that also with plumbing and piping. Go through and set up a standard spec. Some companies, they'll go through and like I said, we manage databases entirely for companies, soup to nuts all the way through. And what we have is an actual matrix that we will send. And in that matrix, there is a standard or default layout, profile that we want to get built. And that's going to be where a lot of plumbing and piping companies will go through and they make a deal with a supplier for a while. They say, you know, the supplier's going to hook them up, and they will say, all right, in this project, our chilled water supply, we're going to use weld bend for our black iron. We're going to switch over at 2 inches to Nibco solder. And what we'll do is we'll build that and call it, you know, chilled water. I know I've used chilled water quite a bit. My mind doesn't, it's still kind of early for me. My mind hasn't expanded past one service. But you know, they'll take chilled water and we'll set it up using the brands that they use and set it up with the particular pieces that they use for material changes in there, because that's another thing. Depending on which company you work for, that can change drastically, is what pieces they use to do a transition over from a welded system to a copper, I'm sorry, a carbon steel welded system to a copper system. So we like to just go through and get these standards built ahead of time. Cuts down when you go to create a new one. You don't have to always create a profile off of the global profile. Anyone have any questions? I still have more to go on what I'm saying, but I don't want to just keep blabbing and then nobody gets a chance to say anything. Nope. All right. Raise your hand or just speak up or whatever if something comes up. What we also like to do with profiles is, like I was saying, you can separate them out by standards, you know, for plumbing, piping, and sheet metal. But not only that, you can go in and actually dial them in more. Now that's going to be mainly ductwork. Normally when a ductwork service is set up, it's not going to change. You know, you're going to have a few variations here or there, but luckily for the duct guys, you go through, you build your standards. You know, you're going to have, like I said, one of the few things you may change is where your S&D drive starts, or if you even use S&D drive. The other thing you may have are materials, different materials, stainless, black iron, you know, PVC coated. But once that's set up, it pretty much doesn't change from project to project. The only thing that may change is going to be your insulation or liner. That's a quick change within the service. That is something that I would create a profile for, though. And it's quick because you can just make a copy of your global or your standard ductwork one, and then modify your insulation settings or whatever, and good to go. Plumbing and piping is a lot more, takes a lot more time and is a lot more in depth because whereas with sheet metal, you build your pieces and you have a standard that you build them from, plumbing and piping has a gazillion parts and pieces that they use to build their stuff. Many manufacturers, many materials, many connector types. That allows for a huge amount of services. What I like to do as a personal practice is I will go through and in my global profile, I'm going to create a service for, you know, with the different materials in there. So I may have 3 services that are, guess what, chilled water. And in those services, I could have one, and at the end, I'll have abbreviations that tells me this service is grooved by pressed copper. And then I could have the next one in my list in global at the end could say weld by pressed, you know, copper. What that does is you end up building a list. Your global profile is going to get large because you are going to have multiple services built for the same service name. But what it does is it speeds up your time in going in and creating a profile off of the global. If you know that your chilled water is going to be grooved by solder copper, you can just check that box. It's already set up. If you don't do it like that, what you have to do is you can check the chilled water, but once you get over to the profile, you're going to change the service template from welded by pressed copper to grooved by pressed copper. This basically eliminates the stage of that where you're not going to have to go through and make that second touch to it. It's just one touch. The advantage on that, like I said, is the speed and being able to create new profiles. The disadvantage is that your global list starts getting pretty long. The way that it's mandatory to do that is you have to make sure that your services, when you set them up for the different material types in there, you're also going to have service templates that you can name. The advantages of having, I kind of got off of my mind, but the advantages of having the services set up that way is, gosh, I did it again. Dang it, man. It's too early. It's too early. But going through and having those pre-built services in there are, like I said, it's going to allow you to quickly create a service, not have to make service template changes. The service templates themselves, as you go through time, you're going to name them as well in a way that you can understand quickly what they are. You're going to want to put pertinent information in there, such as the material you're using, the brand you're using, and where the size cutoff is. My service template names, a lot of them will have, like A53B by SCU, which is going to be soldered copper, and 2IN at the end, 2 inch at the end. That way I know that my cutoff size is at 2 inches. That allows you to quickly build the profiles that you're going to build in global. The procedure that you need to use when you're creating a profile in that manner is you're always going to create a new profile in the global if you have not done it before. The way that I like to build profiles is I only touch it once, as long as I have the information I need up front. I know sometimes we get it later and we have to go back and change it, but we'll go through and take that information and excuse me, set it up so that what you're going to do is set it up in the global profile. The reason why you want to set it up in the global profile is because then it will be available in a single spot forever. You don't want to have a profile. You go to build it. The specs tell you you need this, and this. All right, you've got 10 of those already built, but that 11th and 12th one you have not seen before. So you don't have a pre-made one sitting in your global already. So what you're going to do is you're going to build that new service that you may not have built inside the global. That way, when you actually do go to create the profile, you do have all of them now. You had 10 in there in your global. You built 2 more. Now you have all 12 of them. You can check box all of those and send them over at once. What I see happen sometimes is people will use profiles and they can get confused because a new service comes up that they haven't built before, and they go in and they build it in the profile. And, it works for that profile, for that job. Then, 2 jobs down, that same specification is going to come up. And you're going to go create profile off the global, and you're saying, like, I know I built this one before. Where is it? What project did I build that in? And then you start digging through profiles to try and find it and export it, or you build it again because you don't remember that you already built it. By building everything in global first, then you have a solid base that anything you ever make is going to be in there. When you create a profile, you just check what you need and move over. After enough time, what this is going to do is this is going to build up basically a large library of services, service templates, everything you're going to need, to where when it comes time to create a profile, it's a matter of checking a few boxes, send it over, and then do any minor tweaks that you have to do when you create a profile. Installation specs is the one that I pick on the most. If you're working in sheet metal and you have a different set of specifications required for a project, like they want a different type of reinforcement or something, you'll have to go into the project pressure classes within a new profile and tweak it there. Or you could go and actually create a copy of that pressure class, make a version of that pressure class inside the global, create a service, assign that to it, and shoot it over. Sheet metal isn't as bad as the plumbing and piping side, as far as that goes. And that's from me being a sheet metal guy. Both sides have their pluses and minuses when it comes to the database. In one section, sheet metal is real easy to set up as far as creating services, service templates, but it takes a long time to build their pressure classes. Whereas with plumbing and piping, you don't have pressure classes. The stuff, just this piece goes to this piece. That's just how it is. You can't make it differently unless you've got a welding torch and a big hammer. So each trade has its different advantages. That could be one reason, like you were saying, regarding having two separate databases in there. But I've been taking a lot of time up on there. Anyone got any questions?
Hey, Sean. Yeah, we do have a question here from Temp Design. Rick says, I'm a total newbie working for a food service equipment manufacturer. Do you see this application? Would you happen to have a sample UI?
We do not. I do not have a sample UI. Being a total newbie, yeah, this is probably going to be above your head some, and I apologize for that. This topic right here, profiles, is a more advanced topic rather than just creating services. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work to build these services. So it's not really a UI, it's the actual work that goes into the service to do that. You know what? I don't know what's the best way for me to contact him, Misty? Can you get an email address or something?
Yep, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
All right, go ahead and get his email address, and I'll talk to you a little bit. Yes, Temp and Design. That's an interesting name, by the way. You really, really belong in this trade. I'll go ahead and get with you and maybe share some screenshots with you so you can get an idea of how it goes together. And a question that's probably going to be asked is, you're working in food services. Yes, profiles still can more than likely help you.